You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 3 of this week's. Well, we do like more than one a week, so I don't know why I called it this week's. This episode of the Cricket Podcast. We've done the Border Gavaskar Trophy. We've done England in Bangladesh. Now we're going to talk about the new kid on the block, the WPL, the Whipple, the Women's Premier League, the Women's IPL, whichever name you would like to call it. I think the official one is Women's Premier League.
But we don't do official names.
It's underway. All 5 teams have now played 5 matches, and it's time for us to make some assumptions and draw some conclusions, Max. I don't know if you remember, it probably would have been 2 weeks ago now. It might have been maybe even a little bit longer.
I don't
know if you
first
remember
thoughts
back
from the auction.
Yeah, to our preview / first thoughts.
Yeah.
The first thing that we need to address is that we have so far been quite wrong about the team who are top of the table. I think we said
it's the SA20 all over again.
Yeah, I think we had Mumbai down as the worst team.
We did, absolutely, yeah.
In the tournament. They are currently top with 2 wins from 2. They won their first match, Max, by 143 runs.
Yeah, they've currently got a net run rate of 5.18.
Which is a decent day out. And then they follow that up with a 9-wicket victory. That was pretty fantastic. Or they have been pretty fantastic so far. At the other end of the table, there's a couple of double losers. The Gujarat Giants, with 2 defeats from 2. They were on the wrong end of that 140-run defeat. And then RCB, who have also lost 2 from 2, following on, as everyone has been joking on the internet, following on where the men left off. Max, what have been your first thoughts about the tournament overall? And do you think it has been a lot of fun or not a lot of fun?
I've been pleasantly surprised by the volume of runs on show.
Yeah,
obviously, in the World Cup, England scored 211, was it? And that was a record total. We've already seen 207, 211, and 223. So that's really good. That's really positive in terms of the attacking intent that we're seeing in the women's game that, previously hasn't been as much on show, I suppose, as you might hope. So that's good. Like you said, Mumbai have surprised us. Turns out Hayley Matthews can do everything. I think we all got a little wrapped up about all the Australians and forgot that Hayley Matthews has been dominant in women's T20 cricket for years. So, and they did get her really cheap. So, I mean, that was a real bargain for Mumbai. But I'm still pretty surprised by how well it's gone. And then we can at least pat ourselves on the back about Delhi, can't we? Because we did tip them as being top, and their top 6, as predicted, is disgusting.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen so far, Delhi actually looked like the best team. I think Mumbai 2 from 2 with a better net run rate. Obviously, by the laws of the competition, they deserve to be top. But I think there's definitely some freakish occurrences involved. There's some slightly freakish occurrences involved in their position. Whereas I think with Delhi, they are just genuinely excellent. I do think the RCB story is really funny as well. I don't know if you saw Smriti Mandana say that she wanted to. I think she said something along the lines of, "I want to do for this franchise what Virat Kohli has done for this franchise."
Which she started well.
And off to a great start there with 2 defeats.
Well, look, if you aim low, you can only ever exceed expectations.
It's good, and I also think, I know there's been a few people making comments about the size of the boundaries, which is probably fair, and
probably
I think
contributed to the scores. But
future editions, we might see slightly larger playing areas. But I do think T20 cricket is better when the average score is sort of plus 170 rather than when it's sub 160. That 10 run 160 area, I think that's okay. But I think 170 to 190 is a sweet spot in my mind. And then, definitely anything below 150 is a bit yuck, as far as I'm concerned. Also, some new rules in play. We should touch on them really briefly. Well, I don't know if they're new rules, but the
Well, they
third
are. They're
umpire.
brand new
Right,
rules.
explain the rules.
Well, basically, you can now review as one of your allotted DRS reviews. You can review wides and waist high no balls to the video umpire. That was used immediately in the first game, and there have been some winners from that rule. But I guess we should decide whether we think it's okay, shouldn't we? Because what would be the point of a new rule if we didn't have an opinion on it?
I don't absolutely hate it. I think as long as there's the jeopardy of losing your review, if you get it wrong, it's fine. I think that what that will probably do is deter people from using it early in the innings when it doesn't have such an impact on the outcome of the game. But it will lead to situations, hopefully, where someone bowls like a bouncer that goes over the batter's head, it misses the batter's bat and obviously head because it went over it. But the umpire didn't get a great angle of it, and square leg was looking at his shoes. Yeah. So you can review that. And in the last 3 overs, they can be quite, the extra ball plus the run can be quite pivotal. I think didn't we see a chase last season? I seem to remember Sanju Samson did actually review a wide, but obviously it was like a review out of frustration. He knew that they weren't going to wide they were not going to go on to wide they just wanted to they were going to wide it after the review. He just was like, this is a joke, why can we not do this? And I think that's an okay change. I think in cricket in general we should resist situations because now it's being used for this and we will see that it is right. I think
it will be used everywhere.
We should resist situations where you get like a bit too VAR over it.
This is exactly what my thought about it was. My sort of main concern is that it's, you've got technology that makes it, I mean, obviously not always, but for the most part, it's fairly black and white when it comes to an LBW because you have Hawkeye. Yeah, all right. Sometimes you might think Hawkeye's done something a bit funny as SuperSport have doctored the pictures. Sure, that happens. But for the most part, you've got something that tells you with some certainty that it was out or it wasn't out. Same with, Ultra Edge, you've got the Snicko thing, and it tends to be fairly clear when it's used alongside the pictures. There's a bit more grey area when it comes to wides and no balls. Obviously, you've got batters moving around inside their crease. Suddenly, the guidelines are meanerless. You've got, reverse sweeps and leg sides and what have you. And then you've got with the waistline no balls, you've got, is the batter a short arse? Is the batter crouching? Is the batter halfway down the track? All these things have to come into it. So there's a lot more human error, I suppose, that can come into the video decision.
Yeah.
Which is where it gets a bit like VAR, and VAR's a pile of shit. So
I think I think they've been using ball tracking for waist height no balls, haven't they, from the bat?
That would make sense.
So, that would make sense. In theory, it works. I think it should be. There should be jeopardy though. If you want to review a wide, fine, but you will lose a review. Yeah, and
I think that's
probably
good
keep it in check.
Yeah, it means you'll only use it when it's really important.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing that I've heard rumblings of is that the crowd situation for this tournament has been slightly farcical. I read a Twitter thread from a guy who tried to go, and apparently the ticketing system is quite opaque. There are also parts of the ground, at least one of the venues, which are supposed to be for women only, which I suppose is fine if you want to do it that way.
So you've got family areas in the 100.
But I don't think that has been particularly well articulated. And then when you get to the ground, if you don't basically you don't know where to go. And I think the general fan experience has been a bit iffy. And I think there's been a couple of games that have been relatively sparsely attended. Now I think most of these things will probably get ironed out as we go through. But it's worth
also, I mean, they're big stadiums, aren't they?
Yeah, it's worth making sure that these things are addressed, or it is worth bringing these things up, because it is quite a high-profile tournament, and having the ticket provider, the equivalent of, I was going to come up with a ticket company, but I can't remember any.
Ticketmaster.
Yeah, the equivalent of Ticketmaster. Having them not to be clear about which bit of the stadium you're supposed to sit in after you've paid your money is poor. So, yeah, hopefully it gets figured out. Because it looks like it's created a bit of a buzz and it looks like it's been quite a good tournament.
And cricket wise, it's been good.
Cool. Right. Last question then, Max, on this podcast. Daniel says, with all of these T20 competitions available to players, it seems like the level of players lifted. In particular, it looks like teams now know how to bat properly in the first innings and really set challenging totals to chase. Something to watch for the upcoming IPL. And then Daniel uses the example of the WPL and the PSL and the SA20 as examples of tournaments which have not shown a strong chasing bias in recent times. I don't know if that's a trend you've noticed, Max.
Well, we've picked up on the chasing bias in the PSL before. Islamabad United actually chased 205 today. They hit 18 off the last over, which is the most that anyone's ever chased in the final over of the PSL game. So there's a small one singular data point stat for you. But I think overall, the quality point I think is probably fair, because I think the more you go abroad and play in different conditions against the top players in the world, the more rounded your skill set becomes and the more experience you get, and the better cricket is going to be overall. So I think as long as it's kept to a certain level of, I suppose there's a sweet spot, isn't there, where you don't want to be overdoing it, but at the same time getting the right amount of experience will make things better. I'm still skeptical about whether everyone's learned to play the first innings properly. Only recently is KL Rahul still saying that strike right is overrated.
That was incredible.
For the unveiling of the LSG kit.
Yeah, actually said it again.
Yeah,
and then he used to, what did he say? In a game where you're chasing 140, it was something like, why would you need a strike rate of 200? It was like, well, make the game really easy to win, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And have you ever heard of this tiebreaker rule called net run rate?
Yeah. I can't believe he said that. And then actually,
maybe he's having a sort of.
It would be really useful to have a strike rate of 200. Anyway, Max, we're going to call it a day. It's been a pleasure. But we've got things to do. I turn 31 tomorrow.
Oh, yes, you do. Happy birthday for tomorrow, Jack.
Thanks. Happy birthday to you for a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.